How are you guys? In the last sessions, we start our revision in the fourth quarter with section 6.1 and section 6.2. Today we'll complete our revision with section 6.3, Mendel and heredity. Before we start our revision, any question about the last revisions? You all have a questions? Okay. Question number one, what is genetics? Explain the meaning of the genetics or the branch of the science called genetics. Anyone know the answer? No one know the answer? Okay. Are you hearing me, guys?
Mr.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. So I will answer instead of you. Genetics is the study of the inherited traits from parents to their offspring, or the branch of biology or science that study how traits passed from parents to their offspring. So we can write it study how traits passed from parents to their offspring. The second one, whose early work is the basis for much of our current understanding of genetics. The question asks about the person who explained to us how the traits transmitted or inherited. Who this person? The person who solve our understanding about the inheritance of traits and explain how traits transmitted from parents to their offspring, the father of heredity, Gregor Mendel. The third one, how did Mendel's views on inheritance differ from the views of many scientists of his time? This question asks about the difference between the thoughts of Mendel or the belief of Mendel about the inheritance of traits and the thoughts of other scientists about the inheritance of traits. In the past, the scientists believed that the traits are mixture or mixed from both parents. For example, if the two parents, one of them tall and the other one short, so their offspring will be medium, not short, not tall, but mixture of them will be medium size. So Mendel don't believed in this thought, and he believed that the traits are inherited in individual way or in segregation or in a discrete units. So there is no mixture between them, but it's segregated by two genes, one from each parents. So the answer number three, you will explain the thoughts about Mendel and the thoughts about other scientists. Again, other scientists believed that the
Yeah.
traits are mixed or mixture of the traits of both parents. For example, one of the parent tall and the other one short, so the offspring will be mixture of them will be medium. But Mendel believed that the traits are inherited by a discrete way or a segregation from both parents. Next one. Uh, in designing his experiments, Mendel made three important choices that helped him see patterns of inheritance in the table below. List Mendel's three choices and write an example of how he put each of these choices into action. The question asks about the Mendel's steps during his experiments. What he do? Anyone know the answer, guys? The steps. Okay, so it's clear for me. I will answer all the questions. Okay. Okay. Firstly, Mendel controlled the mating of the pea plant by removing the anther of the plant. Anther is the male organs, and cover the ovaries of the plant to be sure that there is no mixed pollination, there is no self pollination, to be 100% that the plant is pure bird. All the plants are pure. Then he used this pure bird plant to make self-pollinated between each other, and then he studied about that producing generation, the seven pairs of contrasting traits to determine the way in which the traits are inherited. He studied the pea plant shape and pea color, flower color, pod shape, pod color, flower position, and the plant height, the seven pairs of contrasting traits. So I will repeat it, the answer, the steps which make which made by Mendel during his experiments. Firstly, be sure that the plants are pure, so he controlled the mating, so he removes the anther of the pea plant and covered the ovaries to be sure that there is no mixed pollination and there is no self pollination. And then the second step, he allowed the plant, after be sure that they are purebird, to self-pollinating, and then studied the 7 pairs of contrasting traits, like pea plant shape, pea color, flower color, pod shape, pod color, flower position, and the plant height. Number 7, why did Mendel use pea plant? Why Mendel chose pea plant for his experiment instead of any plants available in this time? Uh, Pea plant have many characteristics that helped Mendel uh, during their experiment, during his experiment. Sorry. So, what is this characters? Firstly, the pea plant, uh, its life cycle is very short, so it grow quickly or reproduce quickly and produce numerous number of plant in the generation. And the pea plant flower are hermaphrodite or bisexual, which means have the male and female organs in the same flower. So it allowed the self-pollination and the mixed pollination. Pea plant have 7 pairs of contrasting traits, so it helped Mendel to determine the way of inheritance of traits, and uh, it allowed Mendel to control the mating between the plant. Again, why Mendel choose pea plant? Its life cycle is very, very short, so it grow and reproduce quickly and produce numerous number per generation. And the pea plant flower or hermaphrodite, which means bisexual, have the same or have male and female uh, sexual organs. So it allowed the self-pollination and mixed pollination. Next one, number 8, fill in the sequence diagram below to summarize Mendel's experimental process. The first books, red flowers resulting in first generation with dominant phenotype. So after uh, producing the first generation, we know that the first generation, according to the first law of Mendel, law of segregation, uh, the first generation, all of these traits are dominant trait. No recessive traits appears in the first generation. The second books ask about the second step. The second step after the producing of first generation. After producing the first generation, Mendel allowed the first generation to make self pollination. So the answer in the second box, self pollination between first generation. Offsprings, not parents. The parents in the first. It allowed, yeah, it allowed the producing in the first, the offsprings allowed to be self be sure that the producing generation, all of them are pure. Then, as a result of the self-pollination, in the second box, the second generation will appear the recessive traits. After that, Mendel, the fourth box, calculated the ratio between the dominant traits and recessive traits, and he concluded that the ratio between recessive traits and dominant trait 3 to 1, 3 dominant and 1 recessive, or 25% for recessive, 75 for dominant trait. I will repeat the answer. This is the diagram. Explain the sequence of Mendel's conclusion or the explaining of the first law of segregation, the first law of Mendel about hereditary traits. Firstly, after the pollination between the plant, it produces the first generation. All of the first generation are dominant, no recessive. Then here, the second box, Mendel allowed the producing offsprings to self-pollinated. After that, the first generation appears the dominant and recessive traits. After that, Mendel calculated the ratio between the dominant and the recessive traits, and he find that the ratio between dominant and recessive 3 to 1, 3 dominant, 1 recessive, or 25% for recessive and 75% for uh, dominant traits. Number 9, Mendel concluded that traits are inherited as discrete units. What do we call this discrete units?
حلو.
Discrete
حلو.
units
حلو.
are called genes.
You can't know عشان ده شغل. شو لا شغل.
Concluded the trait that discrete unit
يلا. I'm sorry.
discrete units are called now genes. Number 10, what two conclusions make up Mendel's law of segregation? The conclusion about the Mendel's first law of segregation about the inherited of traits. Number 1, he concluded that the inherited traits are two copies, one from father and the other from mother, from both parents, and the discrete units or the genes are segregated during the formation of gametes. So the segregation represents the inherited traits or genes from both parents. Again, the two conclusions make up Mendel's law of segregation. Organisms are inherited two copies of each gene, one from each parent, and the second one, this discrete units or these genes segregation during formation of gametes. Number 11, segregation means separation. What is segregated in Mendel's law of segregation? Which ask about what is the part that segregated according to the Mendel's first law of segregation. We explained that the segregation occurs for genes, which known before as a discrete units. So genes are segregated according to the Mendel's first law. Number 12, I think the last question in this section. What does purebred mean? What does purebred mean? Purebred means, for example, if the generation self-ornated at a long time, it will produce the same trait, so it will be pure, and then they are genetically uniform. Simply pure. Purebred means they are genetically uniform. Line of organs. All the generation has the same characteristics or the same traits. So they are pure. Purebred again means a uniform. Genetically genetically uniform. Okay. So I think let's see. Okay. Section 6.3